Howdy, partners. This is Doc Moses from down in East Texas, and I wanted to talk to you today about different comparisons of some guns we used. We had a class with 9 students, grades 8 through 12th grade, so that's 13 through 18-year-olds. I don't know that any of them had quite turned 18 yet, maybe just one. Just had 9 students sign up for it. They were all boys, and we got to try a lot of these guns. And I'm relatively new to CAS, been a little over a year, and it's if you've forgotten what it was like when you first signed up, it's kind of mind-numbing, all the different options, the different shotguns and different styles of guns, and do I go with the clone or anything? So we got to try some of these with fresh minds that didn't have any opinions about any of this stuff. And so I wanted to talk to you about that, in particular the comparison of the 22s, because that's what the students shot because of their age. So they did shoot a 12 gauge, but they did 22 rifles and 22 handguns. So I had as a personal rig my weapons, and then we had somebody loan us some others. But let me go through our a little background on us. So I work at a school called the Brook School. It's a day school for Texans in the area, but we also have 120 beds for boarding students in boarding houses with boarding parents and all that. And so we get students from other parts of the U.S., but a lot from the rest of the world. A lot of students from Nigeria, South Korea. We get some from communist China. And so it is a religious school. So if you have any kids or grandkids that need a place to go, it's a good place to go. But do know it is a religious school, and we are strongly evangelical Christian school. Now, I am you'll see from the funny hat, a Messianic Jew, but means I believe in Jesus too. So we're very strong on that. So be sure if you recommend us, you understand that. Now, a lot of our kids don't come from that background, especially the ones from communist China. So they get exposed to American culture for anywhere from 5 to 1 year. They can come as 8th graders, they can come as seniors, or anywhere in between. And they get exposed to the Bible as well. So anyway, that's what we do. That's where we were coming from. And we have a thing called SPARC, SPARC, and it's an acronym. But what it boils down to is the week before spring break, we do out-of-classroom educational experiences. So sometimes they're just local. They'll do a thing on a type of media, or maybe it's a type of movie, and they'll go up there and they'll watch these shows or do this media and then experience it and then write a paper or whatever about it. We also do a lot of trips. Every second year I take a group to Israel, again from my religious background, both Messianic Jew and then Christian Messianic. And we have local missions trips where they stay there at Brook Hill. They go home with their day students during the day and in the evenings, and they'll go and do missions in the area. We're in a small town just south of a city of about, census says about 100,000, but it's really closer to 200,000 with the suburbs and all. And anyway, those kinds of trips, as well as trips to, there's an orphanage we support in Central America. There's trips to places that are just famous, like Greece and Italy and Ireland, those kinds of things. But for what I proposed was to do this year, last year I should say, 22, so that's right before spring break of 2022. I was supposed to take a group to Israel, but with all the COVID testing and all, I decided that was not a good plan. So we just opted not to go. As it turned out, it probably would have worked, but it was the right thing to cancel. So I proposed to do a cowboy action shooting week, and didn't know if they would agree, and they said, yeah, that sounds great. So they trusted me, I guess, and we did that. So we planned it on Mondays. On the Monday of that week, we did a class on rifle handling and safety. On Tuesday, we did I'm an NRA handgun instructor, so we did an NRA class for handguns. And then Wednesday, we went to a local traditional range and did the shooting portion of those 2 courses. Now, the rifle class was just my class. It wasn't the NRA class, but the pistol was. And they all shot and had a good time, and I think they shot level 3. It goes up to level 4. Nobody made level 4. I had 3 other teachers there helping me. None of them were CAS shooters, but they were all 3 familiar with firearms. So it was a good, safe environment. We could have 3 people at the line, and each of them with a coach, and me being the RO calling things out. By the way, at the school, I'm a music teacher and a Bible teacher, so not as stereotypical gun person, but had a great day that day. So Wednesday they qualified, and we could see they were safe with the firearms, made them shoot the shotgun, get comfortable with that. And then we had some extra time, and I had some extra rounds, so I just gave them some free time, under supervision, to shoot whichever of the guns they wanted to shoot again. Good day. And then on Thursday, we went to one of our 2 local area clubs. The Oakwood Outlaws has a fantastic range, and they ended up making lunch for us and everything, doing a cookout, doing s'mores and hot dogs and all that. And for my sake, they made sure they were all beef hot dogs, which was really, really kind of them. But it was fun because some of the kids had never done that. Again, they come from sometimes enormously large metropolitan areas in other countries. In this group of 9 students, we had 4 that had never shot before. 1 American kid and then 3 international students. So what we're going to be comparing, though, in particular, are the 22 handguns, because there's the Bearcat, there's the Wrangler, there's the single 6, there's the Heritage revolvers. So how did they actually stack up, and how did these kids who had never shot SAS before, some never shot anything before, how did they feel about these guns without any any background? Oh, my dad likes this one or anything. So those are the guns we shot with. Now the guns we used, and as I grab these firearms to show you, I'm using the CAS safety protocol. So the levers are open, the shotgun's busted open. On the handguns, I've left the gate here open to show that I previously checked to be sure they're unloaded. So know that we're trying to do things safely. So they practiced. We didn't have them dry fire on the 22s because, as I learned the hard way, even when the manufacturer says you can dry fire their 22, it's wrong. You can't. You mess them up, and I messed up a couple and have spent quite a bit of time getting them back into serviceable condition. The hammer, the firing pin just hits too hard, and it pings the metal of the cylinder if you don't have something there. Even if it's recessed and doesn't look like it's going to hit it, trust me, it hits it. I, again, learned the hard way. So the shotgun we used was my Stoeger 20-inch. This was an Uplander. I cut it off myself at 20 inches. I learned how to do that and how not to do that. If you want the not tos, contact me. Not hard to do, though, and slicked it up myself. Again, not as good as the shotgun pros have, but it works. Then they also practiced with my 73 and 357. Now this is a fantastic gun, so fun to shoot. Wish I'd bought it in 44. I would probably trade it if I ran into somebody who did, but Steve Young's helped me finish it. I bought it as a basket case and did some work on it, and I got the parts I couldn't fix, and he did the rest, and wow, it shoots so well. The other gun that I actually think is the better of the rifles is my 92. Also, this one is in 44 Magnum, and those are the 2 rifles that could practice because I didn't feel like we were going to do any damage dry firing them, as well as the shotgun. The guns the pistols they practiced with were this. You can see it's unloaded. This is a old model VAC in 44 Magnum, my main gun when I could afford ammo. And so they could dry fire this extensively. And then the other gun we used was what got me into this sport, was my Super Black Hawk in 44 Magnum, only with a fluted cylinder. I'm about to sell this, is why I'm doing the video now, so I can get pictures of it before we sell. And it was a nice contrast because these guns are both big and heavy, and this one is definitely heavier than the, we can see it better, than the VAC. So those are the ones they've practiced on. We also had, and I've already gotten rid of it, I bought a Pieta 45 clone. Not really a clone guy, I didn't know that. I wanted to try it and see, and I just never got comfortable with it. Great little pistol, well put together. And I had the 45 ACP cylinder as well. And to make it extra safe, I took the firing pin out of the hammer when we did it, plus having the snap caps and all that. But those are the guns they practiced on. Then when we actually went to the range, they used the shotgun I already showed you, and we used my youth model Henry 22. Really love this firearm. Bought it because my grandkids, they're very young right now, like 3. But someday maybe they'll want to shoot, and I wanted one that was really pretty, so they would want to shoot more. And okay, now the reason I brought this up was, okay, here we go. So then the competition guns we used was this Wrangler that I had bought about a year and a half ago. Bought new, and then this one to go with it that I bought used, and this is the one that I discovered so much damage by dry firing. That's why it was so cheap. I bought it at a gun store and it had been traded in. It was quite a bit under price. It's working great now, but I had to work on it quite a bit to get those cylinders unpinged. And those are the two they shot. But what was great was on our first day at Oakwood, the Thursday, the first SAS day, when we actually shot stages of competition. The gentleman there who runs the range, Denton Dancer, brought his two Bearcats. He brought another shotgun that had been cut off, so it was a shorter stock, so they could get used to that. And one of my students, sadly his grandfather passed away about a year and a half ago, and his grandfather had bought the rifle version of this. This is a 16-inch barrel, 13-round maximum. The 20-inch barrel is what he had. So he brought that new in box, and he also had a 6.5-inch or 6-inch single six stainless. That was the Vaquero type. So we shot all of those. So they got a chance to try the single six, which is really sweet gun. The Wranglers, which are the scaled down versions of the same thing. He also brought his blue 22 youth model Henry. So we had 3 Henrys on the table. He brought his 2 Bearcats, and so that day we were able to go through 3 stages. The first stage went slowly because the kids were kind of nervous about doing it right, and they had a great RO. And I talked to them after that stage and said, hey, look, if your RO says keep pulling the trigger, pull the trigger. Don't worry about round counts. Trust him. Let him help you. And after that, man, they just took off and did a great job and had a good time. And then that's the day they also got to shoot extra afterwards. After we stopped after 3 rounds and went 8, and then came back for about 45 minutes and let them shoot just some extra rounds we had. The RO let them shoot his match guns, so they got to shoot some 357 Rugers. And he also did a demo because I shouldn't say this, but I'm slow. Okay, I don't mean up here. I'm slow at shooting, so it was good for them to see a good shooter. I don't think I ever actually got to shoot a stage. So then that was Thursday. Then Friday we went and shot at the Texas Troublemakers, another fantastic range. Both those ranges have really beautiful props set up, so they're just kind of fun. It was a cold, windy day and started to rain at the end, but worked out perfectly. We didn't quite get wet until we were on the way home. Didn't have all the extra guns there, but Denton Dancer made us a box of reduced charge 12 gauge, which I don't reload 12 gauge yet, or shotgun yet. And that was great because those kids gravitated to those. Let me tell you, I buy the lowest velocity you can buy at the store, but right now that's occasionally an 1145, but most of the time it's a 1200 feet per second round. So they were loving that, and they gravitated towards those. So that day we shot another 3 stages, but we got to end. We had just enough time, too early to quit, but not enough to do another stage because it took a while with just my guns there that time because I had to unload them, load them up, get the next shooter up, unload them, load them up, get the next shooter. We did a little steel challenge where we did a team shoot. We took the shotgun out of it and then had them shoot the rifle and the 2 pistols, groups of 3, and competed. Got my 3 other coaches to be a team because the kids wanted to beat them, and they did. And so it was a lot of fun. So back to the comparison. Now the 22s rifles, nothing to compare. They were all the same rifle. 2 of them were youth models, 1 was longer. No real difference in the kids gravitating to one or the other. They liked them all pretty much equally. The shotgun, they only had the 1 option. I do think they liked that shortened stock a little bit. Some of them did. Remember, I had 2 8th graders and 2 seniors. Everybody else was in between age-wise. So 2 17-year-olds and 2 13-year-olds. And that shorter stock helped them. I did have one of those 8th graders who always went for the factory ammo. I mean, I respect the heck out of that. What we used for practicing and was this a print off here of different sweeps that are used in SAS. I got off the SAS wire, and we went through a bunch of those just for fun back at the school building on Monday and Tuesday when we were dry firing our practice between sessions for the classes. So when we got to these and we had the Wranglers and then we had the single six and the Bearcats, I thought the Bearcats would be intensely popular because they are a little bit smaller. The single six and the Wranglers are the same. It's kind of like buying a Cadillac Escalade and a Suburban. They're the same car. The Cadillac Escalade is really slick, but you buy the really slicked up Suburban, and there's really not much difference. just some of the badging is different. Well, that's kind of the single six. The single six is absolutely a Cadillac. I love that stainless single six. Almost blew too much money buying one, and then stopped myself and said, why? I've got 2 Wranglers. That's all I can shoot at a time. Being a private school educator, I don't have a ton of money, so what a sweet gun, though. Maybe someday I'll have 2 of those and I'll get rid of the Wranglers or something, but a really sweet gun. Didn't like the barrel lengths. One of the things I did right with the Wrangler was make the 4.6 barrel and then the reverse spin or free spin as stock. Really made reloading a lot easier, a lot more simple. So, let's see, we talked about all of that. The leather we use, this is a holster that I made, my main holster. And to go with it, to keep them moving down the line, we had a holster that was given to me early on. It had been stored improperly, so it had a lot of mold and mildew on it, but I cleaned all that up and let it set in the sun and in the garage, and now it's fine. And it's been cut for 4.6s. Really nice leather work here. Can't remember if this is Kilpatrick or somebody else. Can't see where the name was. But anyway, this is a professional rig and definitely well done. But what really came in handy, those are both drop holsters, was I bought a couple of holsters online. I just put them on a regular belt, really big belts, because some of the kids were petite, some weren't. And with the double holes here, if they were real skinny, they could cinch it up as small as that. If they were bigger kids, they could go as big as that. And so that's the holster they actually ended up using the most often. Shotgun wise, I don't really like my shotgun belt, but this is what I've got with the elastic. And I didn't answer it also long, just one of those. So the conclusions. They loved dry firing the 73 over the 92. No surprise there if anybody's having a 73. Didn't get a chance time-wise and round-wise to let them shoot this or the 92. But they did love this. No question. Like I said, I wish I'd gotten it in 44. But that is a really good 73 too. It's not like your average. Dry firing wise, I thought they would go for the Colt clone because it's lighter than the old vac and the Super Blackhawk. They really didn't. In fact, some of them like the Super Blackhawk the most. Of course, remember I had the fluted cylinder, so it looked better. They just liked it, and the sights are easier to acquire. So even with the kids who've not had a lot of practice, they understood, subconsciously. Oh, I can catch the sights on this one better. One of the things they did wrong was when we were dry firing, they got in the habit of just moving, boom, 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 boom. And when you're dry firing, you can do that, but they got to the range and they were moving, and they'd be pulling that trigger, and it's like, oh, I wasn't all the way on the target yet. So you've got to get to the target, but they figured that out pretty quick. Honestly, I was surprised. I thought the single 6 would be the one they would go for because it's just so nice. It wasn't. And then I thought the Bearcats would be popular because they're smaller. One of the 8th graders said he didn't like them because he felt like the recoil was worse. Now, they're steel guns, so they're relatively heavy, probably as heavy or heavier than this, but he didn't like them. They actually, when they had a choice, would go for these Wranglers. The Wranglers I haven't done anything to them other than shoot them. I haven't even opened them up. My experience with a lot of firearms is if you just pull the trigger 1,000 times, those springs slick up really nicely, and you don't have to replace anything. So, and if you do that while you're practicing, now again, I'm not going to dry fire this because I don't have any thing in the cylinder, but you cock it back, and you pull that trigger. Cock it back, pull that trigger. Now again, with this being a single rim fire, I'm going to do it like this. But you're getting practice here too, so I don't see a real need to fancy up these guns. The gist of this long video was they liked the Wranglers better. The Wrangler and the single 6 are the same thing. The single 6 grips were a little fatter, and they were nicer looking, but these grips would have fit on there. Very surprised. Not surprised they love the Henry 22s. I think they're fantastic out of the box. Again, you don't have to do anything to them except shoot them. They're smooth out of the box, and then after you pull that trigger or cock that thing 1,000 times in your living room, they shoot great. They loved the 73, and they tolerated the 12 gauge. But so anyway, if you have any thoughts on that, I'm sorry that took too long to get to the chase. But if you're not a Wrangler owner and you're debating between a single 6 and a Wrangler, a single 6 is a nicer gun. But the Wrangler does the job, and it's really affordable. You can afford to buy 2. I may even buy a 3rd one. And again, like I said, as a private school educator, I don't like to have a lot of guns around that I don't use. But they've got them with the little bird's eye grip now. I'm kind of curious about that. Let's see if I can show you here if the camera will zoom in enough. You can see some imperfections right about there. Under the Cerakote. That's the difference that you won't see on a single 6. They'll be set up where they're really nice. These you'll have those little imperfections. I do not understand why they insist on this blued cylinder. When I was in the 80s, I grew up in the 70s. I remember they started making kids' guns with a different colored part so they wouldn't look like real guns, one of those Ralph Nader things. And now we're making real guns with different colored parts. I don't get that. Don't understand why we think that's a good idea. But it is what it is, all the way from Smith & Wesson with their scandium and titanium cylinders and all that. I'm going to experiment with this one, the one that I got super cheap that was pretty messed up, with see if I can Cerakote the cylinder and if it'll still spin. That adds material, so it might be too tight, but if I mess it up, I can strip it off and re-blue the cylinder and it'll be back to where it was. Thank you for watching, and if you ever get a chance to visit the Texas Troublemakers, the Oakwood Outlaws, come on out. They're great gun clubs. And nobody needing a school for their student, have them look at Brook Hill in Bullard, Texas. Thank you.